Hi there folks, it's Ros here from Books from My Bookshelf, and Tilly, of course, my co-host. Here we are with another sort of wintry book list in a way. I did a winter book list last week, but I know that the books that I suggested on that list were quite cold, chilly, icy, wintry settings. So I thought it'd be nice to do something for people who want a little bit more comfort for their winter reading. And instead of looking at specific books, because when I came to make up this list, I thought, oh gosh, I've talked about these so many times. I thought instead it would be fun to actually look at specific authors whose books are generally always great comfort reads. So you can read any of these authors' books and curl up with them on a cold winter's night and feel like you're getting a nice warm hug. Now, just before I go on, I'm changing my format a little. As you know, I do a lot of book reviews. Usually over the last 2 years, I've done a book review for every book I've read. Single book reviews don't get a lot of views. So what I've decided to do is, instead of doing single book reviews, I'm going to do a sort of wrap up, a bi-monthly wrap up. I don't read quickly enough to do a monthly wrap up. So I'm going to, every 2 months, I'm going to review the books I've read for the last 2 months. So you're getting a book list and a review all in one. So that's what it's going to be. So the first one will be actually at the end of January, where I shall review all the books I've read in December and January. So that's the way we'll go on from now. But for now, let's get on with 6 authors that I think you can read at any time and feel comforted, warm, and, well, like you're getting a nice cuddle from Tilly. And I tell you what, she gets good cuddles, don't you? Yeah. Oh, bye-bye then. Now, on the day I'm recording this, the 3rd of December, it just happens to be Jane Austen's 250th birthday. Happy birthday, Jane Austen. And so, of course, I had to include Jane Austen on this list, the ultimate comfort read, any of her books. Particularly, I suppose, her most well-known one, Pride and Prejudice. But you can pick up any Jane Austen novel and curl up on a cold winter's night and just feel warm and fuzzy. I have 4 of her books. Of course, I've read them all, though. So, in no particular order, of course, we have Pride and Prejudice. Wonderful, you know, the ultimate enemies to lovers romantic story ever told. And, you know, that format has been copied in many ways and versions, time and time again. It's just a lovely thing to watch, that, isn't it? Northanger Abbey. This is the one that kind of pokes fun at the Gothic novel that was around during the early 1800s, and the main character, who is obsessed by these impossibly perfect heroines and supernatural events, and tends to see that in her own life, and she kind of struggles a little bit with actual reality. But this is a great, I love this novel. It's fun. It's really great fun. Of course, my favourite, Emma. This copy that I've told you before, my Auntie Dorothy gave me in 1972. I love Emma. She's the very privileged young lady who takes it on herself to be a matchmaker and gets it all wrong. And, you know, again, it's great fun. It says a lot as usual with Jane Austen, such a lot about the social conventions of the time, but it's such a gentle poking fun at this flawed heroine who really ultimately does have a heart of gold, and it has a rather lovely ending too. And the other one I have, of course, is Sense and Sensibility. It's another lovely copy that's that I picked up in a second-hand bookshop in Cambridge a long time ago, and it's got an introduction by Stella Gibbons of Cold Comfort Farm fame, and illustrations by Helen Sewell. Quite unusual illustrations they got. I'm rather fond of this. And again, I just love sensibility. The story of these two sisters and their mother and their younger sister who fall upon hard times. And they're the two sisters being very, very different and responding very differently to the men in their lives, and how they cope with all the difficulties around that. And again, it's just a lovely, lovely, warm read. And of course, the two others that I've read, don't own a copy of. Mansfield Park. Jane Austen's slightly more political novel, Mansfield Park, which didn't actually go down that well when it was published at the time. She has something to say about the slave trade in that one. And at the time, you know, people just wanted these sort of nice books about making fun at social conventions. They didn't really want her to go into political comment. But she was actually, from what she says, you know, in her surviving letters, she was actually most proud of that one. So the basic plot of Mansfield Park is about a woman who, a girl who at the age of 10 is sent to live with her very wealthy aunt and uncle and their family, and really gets very much looked down on and mistreated and quite often ignored. And of course, as she gets older, a romance develops as well, which doesn't go well at first, but eventually, of course, all Jane Austen's books have a happy end. That's what makes them comforting reads. And of course, the other one, which I really love too, is Persuasion. And that, again, has a romance that's kind of gone wrong at its heart. It's about a woman who was persuaded to turn down the advances of a man because of his different social status. And when they meet up again, their circumstances have very much changed and kind of swapped around, and it's a question of whether they can get back together again. Very much again about the social conventions of wealth and status and who can marry who and all that silliness. So yeah, any Jane Austen book you can curl up on a winter's night for sure and just get stuck into those lovely stories. And if you would like to see my interview with Anna Walker of the website The Conversation, who have been running a podcast on Jane Austen for her birthday celebrations, then I'll put a link up for you up here. Now, talking about Jane Austen made me come over a cup of tea-ish. So I thought I'd use this mug, which is it's got Chatsworth House on it. I bought this at Chatsworth House many years ago. In fact, it's rather relevant really, because it's thought that Jane Austen used Chatsworth House as the inspiration for Pemberley House in Pride and Prejudice. And in fact, they used Chatsworth House for the film with Keira Knightley. And Mum and I visited Chatsworth House quite soon after they made that film. They had those beautiful statues up, and it was nearly Christmas time. So it was such a lovely visit. if you're ever in Derbyshire, do visit Chatsworth House. Whatever time of year it is, it's well worth a visit. Cheers. Now, before we leave the 19th century, I thought we must just take a trip across the pond and visit an absolute classic American writer who wrote one of the most lovely, well-loved classics for, well, children, young girls, adults, whoever. And of course, I'm talking about Little Women. This is my very old copy that I inherited from a grandmother, probably. This one's printed before 1930 because it doesn't have a date in it. But of course, there were sequels to Little Women. One of them was Good Wives, which I think is actually now included in most editions of Little Women. So you kind of read them as one, but Little Women and Good Wives were written as two books originally. I believe I'm right in saying that. Do correct me if I'm wrong there. And then, of course, we also had Little Men and another book called Jo's Boys. I once had a copy of that, I think, but I can't lay my hands on it. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 books all set around the March family. But the ultimate, the best loved one, I think, all in all, is Little Women with its Good Wives sequel. Set during the American Civil War and with the 4 March girls with their father away at war and trying to get by on very meagre means with their mother, and just the story of them, their relationships with each other. If you want to sort of look for a book that is a metaphor for a big warm hug, it's got to be Little Women, hasn't it? Of course, there are some very heartbreaking moments in it, but it's a story of life, so of course there are. But it's the warmth of the novel that comes through, the warmth of a loving family life. It's one of the only books that makes me cry, and it's not the most obvious bit that can make you cry, but yeah, it probably did too. But what often makes me cry in novels is a very, very joyful moment, and that's the bit when father comes home. Oh, it's so lovely, so joyful. So, yeah, I had to include Louisa May Alcott for this. I'm not sure. I mean, I read Little Men and Jo's Boys. I don't think they had quite the appeal of Little Women somehow, but still worth reading as well, for all their warmth and family joy. Now, for my next author, I've chosen somebody who started out as a playwright, then wrote a coming-of-age novel I'll talk about in a minute, but is most well known for her series of children's books that were later made into films, both animated and real action films. And I am talking about Dodie Smith, and she was the author of 101 Dalmatians. And it's 2 sequels. There's The Starlight Barking and Twilight Barking, which I don't have a copy of for some reason. I absolutely loved these books as a child. I mean, I've always been a lover of dogs, as you know. And I really just adored this book. These books I read over and over again. They're just great stories told from the dog's point of view. Of course, 101 Dalmatians, about a Dalmatian couple owned by another lovely couple who are expecting puppies, but danger lurks when the awful Cruella de Vil arrives and sees an opportunity for a rather nice spotted overcoat. And of course, they go off to rescue their puppies, and turns out to be a lot more puppies to rescue than they at first thought. It's a lovely, lovely, heartwarming But of course, later on, when I was in my 20s, I discovered her other book called I Capture the Castle. I don't have a copy of it, but it was written in 1948. It was published in 1948. I think she wrote it during the war. And it's about the daughter of a struggling writer who live in this sort of cold, rambling, falling down sort of castle of a house. And it's about her, it is a coming of age novel about her life in there with her family and sisters and her father, and of course her first love, and there's a lot of romance. It's such a lovely book to read. It really, really is. So if you've only ever heard of Dodie Smith for her 101 Dalmatians books, then do have a go at I Capture the Castle. Again, it's like a warm hug. I remember just thoroughly enjoying it when I read it in my 20s. She wrote something else called Dear Octopus. I don't know much about that, so, let me know if you know anything about that. Talking about children's books, and if we're talking about children's books that I can still read over and over again, then I have to include these in this video. These are the 7 Chronicles of Narnia. Here they all are, my original books from my childhood, much thumbed, as you can see, read over and over and over again, well into my adulthood, and I can still read them now. So, of course, we're talking about C.S. Lewis, who is the most well-known for writing the 7 Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, The Magician's Nephew, The Horse and His Boy, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, A Silver Chair, and The Last Battle. Great books. I think I loved them as a child because, of course, partly because of talking animals, but also I think they are, again, so full of warmth and love and courage. Of course, really bad things happen, but it's the profound messages in the books about integrity, as I say, courage, truth, the way you treat people. And I think there's something, as a child, I think there is something incredibly comforting about the figure of the great golden lion Aslan. Highly symbolic of, lots of religious symbolism, which was fine for me as a child. That religious symbolism is still fine with me now, even though I'm not particularly religious, but the messages still remain the same. It doesn't really matter. And I can just read them over and over again still. But I think they take me back to a particular feeling I had as a child reading these. They were just a huge comfort for me. So I think you can read these at any time as a child or as an adult. A whole box set you can buy now of the Chronicles of Narnia, I think, make a great Christmas gift for any child today. C.S. Lewis also wrote some adult books. He wrote science fiction, so Out of the Silent Planet, which I reviewed earlier this year, and books like The Screwtape Letters. I'm not including those so much in this list because I wouldn't call them much of a comfort read in a way, although you could enjoy the science fiction books. But I have included C.S. Lewis mainly for the Chronicles of Narnia. And I always think there's absolutely nothing wrong as an adult to curl up with a good classic children's book and a big mug of hot chocolate. Here's an author that I discovered in my 20s. She was writing in the 1950s and 60s, but I discovered her much later on Went through most of her books like a dose of salt, couldn't get enough of them, and I'd always be happy to reread any of these. I'm talking about an author called Mary Stewart. Absolutely loved her. I'm not going to go through all the plots of these, but basically, mainly, most of them were sort of mystery, romantic thrillers, usually set in a holiday setting. Some of them, there's some set in Greece, some set in France. And the main characters, usually highly intelligent women on their own, on holiday, or in some, away from home for some reason, and getting involved in some strange mystery. But there's also a little bit of romance along the way as well, usually. They are just great, unputdownable books, I found. And the ones I have, and I have read more than the books I actually own, in no particular order again. I've got This Rough Magic, that one's set in Corfu. Wildfire at Midnight, which is set in Scotland, I think. Yes. 9 Coaches Waiting. Oh yeah, that's the one set in France. The Gabriel Hounds, set in Lebanon. And also there's The Ivy Tree, which I sadly don't have a copy of. I know I've read it and I know I really enjoyed it. There's also Madam, Will You Talk, which I thought I had a copy of. I'm sure I do. Can't lay my hands on it. But that was one of my favourites, and completely unputdownable towards the end, I remember. Really thrilling. But also there's a few more that were slightly different in theme and tone, and more historical as well. She also got into kind of magical kind of feel of books too. I cannot remember what this is about, but this is The Wind Off the Small Isle. It's quite a short one. And Thornyhold, set in this big house in the country that has some sort of magical spell over it. Interesting one. There's this historical one, The Prince and the Pilgrim. It's one of her sort of Arthurian type books set in Cornwall, but she also wrote a trilogy around the King Arthur and Merlin story, the first of which was The Crystal Cave. That's a really good trilogy as well. I think I've missed a few out. Thunder on the Right is another one of the thrillers. She wrote a lot. And if you like mystery thrillers, I really, really recommend those first few that I mentioned. They are just great reads. And definitely ones that are great to curl up with on a cold winter's night in front of a fire. But I also recommend the Merlin trilogy as well. The other ones, the Thornyhold, The Wind Off the Small Isles, didn't quite have the sort of same grabby feel as the others. But all the same, Mary Stewart. Really, really recommend you read any of her books if you haven't already. Now, last and by no means least, I think one of the best authors for a lovely, warm comfort read, and my namesake, Rosamunde Pilcher. And I have several of her novels, and I think we've talked about this one quite a lot on this channel, but of course I have to mention it here. And it's a great winter read, and ending at Christmas time, and it's the winter solstice, of course. Absolutely love this book. All of her books, well, most of her books they're sort of family novels, books around family and family relationships, and so warm-hearted. This one it's about an older woman, which I really like that. You don't always get lots of books about older women, who leaves London to set up a nice home in Hampshire. But then after a tragedy happens, she then goes to Scotland, where she kind of finds herself as the refuge for several other people and all of their problems, and she kind of becomes the centre of this group. The novel sort of moves towards Christmas and sort of lovely, heartwarming ending. So yeah, The Winter Solstice is lovely. The first one I read and really got me into reading Rosamunde Pilcher was The Shell Seekers. Now, it's a much more summery book, this, but still, I think, really great for a dark night winter read. If you prefer for your winter read to actually think of summery days, warmer days. It's a book that moves around in time, and it's about a woman examining her life, her childhood with her struggling writer father. And again, it's a real family novel and just a lovely, great, warm read. And then we have this one, September. I've mentioned this one in autumn, for autumn reads, of course. But again, you can read this any time of year if you just want to curl up with something good in front of the fire. And again, this one's set in Scotland. And people coming together for a party and all their various sort of difficulties and relationships and problems all kind of coming together, and the kind of revealing of memories and secrets, and lovely one. I just loved reading Rosamunde Pilcher. My mother and I went through a sort of period of reading all of these, and then there's this one as well, Coming Home, which is about a woman who goes to stay in Cornwall in this lovely house and family, and she completely falls in love with this house and with the whole family. And then the Second World War sort of looms. Of course, that family kind of begins to get broken up, but it comes around again. And the coming home theme is a kind of symbolic one as well. There are also a couple of shorter books that I sort of discovered more recently, and this one's The Carousel. Again, this one is set in Cornwall. About a woman who leaves London, goes to Cornwall, falls in love with an artist. There's some secret going on there. And one that I read the most recently is Another View, which I think I reviewed maybe a couple of years ago. As I remember, I think this is set in Cornwall as well, about a woman returning from Paris, again with an artist father. So it's a similar sort of theme to The Carousel, coming home, discovering secrets about her past, her family, etc. So they're all very, very family orientated, and there are more that I haven't read. Let me just go through a list here. There's The Blue Bedroom, Flowers in the Rain, Wild Mountain Thyme, The End of Summer, Sleeping Tiger, The Day of the Storm, and The Empty House. There are lots more Rosamunde Pilcher to look out for. But I think if you read just one author over this winter who will give you a lovely, warm, fuzzy feeling while it's snowing or icy outside, then I think Rosamunde Pilcher has got to be the author of choice. So there you are. There you have it. My 6 authors to curl up with on a winter's night in front of the fire with a large mug of hot chocolate. It's worth going through winter just for that, isn't it? And I'm thinking for my video for next week, hello Tilly, there you go, I think I might do another list for Christmas. Last week I did a winter list with lots of books in there that were very, very wintry settings. So I thought what I'd do for my next list is do some books with a Christmassy theme, or stories with a Christmassy theme. So might include a few short stories, a few children's stories, just a few books and stories for the Christmas period in particular. Yeah? Good idea? Oh, yeah, you think so. So that's it for now. And there'll be lots more coming up soon. I love this time of year. There's going to be my review of all the books I've read in 2025. And coming up in January, there will be my preview of all the books that I hope to read in 2026. Yeah. What do you think? Yeah. So that's it from me and Tilly for this week. Stay safe, stay warm, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.